Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the RealNex Mastermind series. Today, I am delighted to have special guest Josh Marcell, Senior Vice President at Cresa. I'm Jeff Finn, your host from RealNex, and thrilled to have so many of you joining us today, and delighted to have Josh as a long-term client. He's got a great story to tell, great history where he brought RealNex into one of the major leading regional firms and built where he was building a tenant rep business, and then moved his business to Cresa and is now part of a national and global team providing corporate occupier services, tenant rep in the Houston region, but also around the world, and has been using RealNex well from a tenant rep and corporate services perspective. He's going to take a deep dive into how he does that from a local granular level of building stacking plans to running deals, and how does he win business, how does he provide the tour, build the tour, evaluate spaces, and enable his clients to make great decisions, and for him to provide an incredible service to those clients. So Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you, and just as we're doing that, I'll remind everyone that we are recording the session, and we'll have it available to you in a playback mode either tomorrow or Monday. Well, we're also open for questions along the way, so if you have anyone had any questions, please chime in. I'll do my best to curate them during the session, or at the back end we'll have some time for Q&A as well. So Josh, you should have received a request to take over the screen. There you go.
I got it. Thank you. Appreciate it, Jeff. Yeah, so when RealNex asked me to do this, I thought a good way to go about it would be to give a rundown on how I've operated within the system. As Jeff said, going through stacking to analyzing a lease deal in the system. And it's been quite a journey, I guess, with these guys over the last, I guess I've been working with them for 5 years now. They've assisted us in modifying the system. They've helped work through issues that have popped up, and I think we have a pretty bomb-proof system at this point. So one of the things that was most important when we started evaluating a new CRM was, how do we get data in? How do we stack? How does that work? And what we found was that with the old way I did things, we were doing it old school, printed out on Excel sheets, walking buildings top to bottom, finding out who was there, coming back in, typing it all up, and it took forever. It took 3 or 4 interns, a solid summer to do about 1,000 buildings. And we're able to do that now with substantially less, I'd say about 30% less expense, primarily because we can roll into each of these properties in the app. And let's see, what I'm going to do, what I did was build a fake building for RealNex to show y'all how we would do that. So we roll into these buildings. We have all the information we need. The app is similar, though not exactly the layout of this screen. And you can go into spaces. And as you're walking this building, you're seeing where my suites are. You're seeing what tenants are in there. If I come across, this test B suite, and those guys aren't there any longer, I come over, I delete it, it's gone. And if I need to add a new space, you just click it, you tack in whatever floor you're on, the suite. If you know square footages, you can put that. You attach it to a tenant. You can create a new company if you want to, save it, and it pops up right here. So it makes it substantially easier to do a deal. Now in this case, one of the things I wanted to do was show you, if we find our RealNex group, they've got a company, that company's in this building now. I'm just going to go over to these guys and edit it out so that I change from their old spot to their new one. It automatically updates all this stuff, so it's fairly easy. You can drop in a web page, which I do as well, so I can keep up with these companies. Drop in a suite if you would like. and that's going to get you a pretty solid stack when you're done. One of the more interesting things that we do or are able to do with this is once you have a company, we start our marketing process. And so one of the things that we start with are our emails that we'll send to folks. And we typically use groups. And what we'll do in a group is take a list of folks. In this case, we're going to use all the people that are at RealNex, so 27-ish people that we've loaded in here. We're going to find all of them. We're going to link to them and have them all pop up so that we can start that process. Now, if I'm wanting to send out an email campaign, what I'm going to do is come to Real Campaigns. You can also do SMS. We haven't done that much. You can go to the Real Campaign deal, proceed on Real Campaigns. And I created this CRE dual agency deal so that I can send out just an initial blast to kind of let people know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to select that one. And what we have, once you do that, is a email that's been created. It allows me to send out what I want, links back to the website that I want to link back to. I can preview it. So for Bobby, I've got Dear Bobby, I've got Dear Steve, all my data down here that I need. I can schedule it if I'm doing this on a Sunday night so that it goes out, you know, on whatever time I choose, whatever day I choose, or I can send it immediately, which we're going to do here. So I'll send that out. That goes, and in a minute we'll come back and take a look at the Real Campaigns deal and see how that went. So what we've done is we've stacked a building, we've added a new tenant to that building, we've gone in and sent emails to every single person that we wanted to within that organization, and each of those people will get that email. And then what we'll do is go in, and I'm going to pop up my groups list here just so you can see what we do in that regard. Because I'm going to send an email, and then the next day I'm going to call them, or I'm going to LinkedIn to them, or whatever we end up doing. But if I want to call them, I'm going to come to my group that I set, and I'm going to be able to come in. This is, you know, I've stacked 50 buildings. I've got 500 tenants that I want to call. Come at the top, I start. I will end up coming over to this first company, so Renewable Energy. Sorry guys if y'all are watching. And when I'm making my dial here, which I'm able to link up to my dialer that I use, I'm able to kind of pop over and take a look. I need to talk to this contact. In the past, we've made a handful of calls, haven't been able to get a hold of them. You know, ring, ring, I talk to the guy, or I don't. We're able at that point to check out a last activity. So called, I can say whatever happened down here. They answered, they didn't answer, we got a meeting, we got a deal. Do a quick follow-up where I'm going to send follow-up email on whatever day. I'll save that. And it's going to tell me this is what I'm going to do next. This is what I did in the past. So it gives us an easy way to very quickly go through a whole lot of calls if you're doing a cold call set after you've sent out a bunch of emails and potentially SMS, text campaigns, that type of stuff. In our trials that we ran it, we were able to do something like 80 calls in 2 hours on this system. It was incredibly fast, and that's super focused, great list. But it was incredibly fast when we did that. Let's take a look and see if our Real Campaigns have come back yet. So here we saw that we had 27 emails sent. You get your stats over here. And so what we see is we sent 27 emails to those folks. We delivered 22 of them, so 81%. None dropped, 20 were opened, had 20 clicks, 5 bounces, no unsubscribes. Thank you, Jeff, for telling nobody to unsubscribe. I don't want my email to be.
No one hurts your relevance.
And so when you do that, fantastic way with the tracking here to be able to add this to groups. So we saw earlier when I wanted to call on a group of people, all I did was go in, click on the group, it all popped up. If I see that people have opened and that people have clicked, what I like to do is come down and I'll add it to a group. So I'll add it to any of these groups that I've created that I'm going to use to continue prospecting them. And while I'm at Tenant Rep and while we use this for Tenant Rep exclusively, you know, if you're selling properties, if you're doing investment sales, if you're selling residential properties, it's effectively the same setup. You may just have a different number of people that you're contacting per building than I do. So you can see that in bounces. A lot of times with bounces, I'll add this to a group where I can go in and double check this. See if somebody's moved, see if there's been a leadership change so that I can follow up with that company, because if there's a leadership change or something along those lines, it's a fantastic time to go find out who the new decision maker is and how I can represent them in the future. Every once in a while, you'll get an unsubscribe and you know that automatically ticks off the do not email, do not send in the system. So it's fairly easy to stay compliant with any rules that you have as it relates to email. So with that, you know, once you stack it, you start marketing to these people, you send emails, you send SMS, you send a bunch of touches, you make calls. At some point, hopefully you're going to get a deal. And at that point, what I'll do is I'll create a project in the system. And in this case, I already did that, which I'll note this is super handy that they added this where you can look at anything you want anywhere across the system, this universal search bar up at the top. What you can do is set up your projects, and your projects, hopefully you're going to have 10, 15, 20 projects at any given time. This will allow you to aggregate them, see what your pipeline looks like. I have mine set up to where I assign a percentage to each of them. So if I'm doing due diligence on a company, if we're talking, if we're dancing, but we're not actually engaged, then I'm going to set it at a 10%, and so on and so forth until we get up to lease execution. Now, once again, one of the things that I like about the system a lot is anywhere you go, you know, if you're in a company screen, you can add a new company. I don't think this toolbar is going to let me click over there. You can add a new project, history, timeline. There's a million things you can add. And so if I wanted to add a new project for this RealNex deal, it's as simple as coming in. We'll call this one extension. I'm going to attach it to a company. And then what I want to make this is Tenant Rep. You guys may be leasing, you might be sales, investment sales, whatever. I'm going to make it Tenant Rep, and I've built out my statuses. So I was a little late on getting this done. We're actually at RFPs. Date I'm opening it is now. Date I expect it to close is next May. Size. So we're going to call this, say Jeff's expanding. I'm going to do 10,000 square feet. My deal amount is going to be $2 million gross over the term. I'm at my 50% probability because I have my term sheet set here already. And then I've got a commission percent of 4%, which aggregates out. It tells me my total commission is 80. My weighted commission is 40 because I think I'm only at 50%. Save it, I'm done. And now I've got my pipeline. I'm sitting on a deal worth 80. If I close it, I'm going to give it 40,000 in my pipeline right now. And once you have 10, 15 of these, they've got a little Kanban sheet where you can look at it and see exactly what stage they're at, exactly where your pipeline is, and exactly how much money you think you're going to make over a given amount of time. So the thing about projects, once you're engaged with that project, we really enjoyed this setup, or I enjoy this setup, because you can come in and you can create these tour books and various analysis to help your clients out. In this case, I created a RealNex renewal survey, and we can see how the survey gets set up. Well, a tour. You come in, you give it a deal name, you select buildings by address. They've got all these things geocoded. So once you drop an address in, then you're going to be able to put in whichever one of these you want. So you add your, 6, 7 tours that you're going to go on. You tell it it's a lease, it's a new lease, office, here's my square footage, all this other stuff. If I want to add my clients, which you do, you can type them in here. So if I wanted to do Jeff at realnex.com, well, he's not in there like that. But if I got his email right, it would pop up.
Try JFin. That might get you there if I'm in your system. There you go.
There we go. So if I've got Jeff in there, I add all my clients in. And this will allow me to send them a link to the survey or the tour book when it's done. They can pull it up on their computer, they can pull it up on their phone. Makes it super easy to do. I also dropped in their company colors just so they feel good about doing business with me. And then what we did, we set up a 2-building tour here in Houston. Gives me my map because it's geocoded. And allows us to come in. We can drop in as many pictures of the building as we'd like, just drag and drop. We can drop in as many floor plans as we like. Some of these I'll have 6, 7 floor plans lined up here. And then we can come in, and the thing I like most about this is I can come in and I can start tacking in how much it's going to cost my client for these spaces while we tour. My old tour books, I'd have a triple net rate, I'd have an OpEx, would have a gross rate, $50, $45, whatever it was. The client looks at it and they don't quite understand what that means. This allows me on their phone to show them this is going to cost you net rent $29,000 per month. And if you want to do a gross, I've got my OpEx down here of 1952. So gives me a really easy way to either do net or gross rates, depending on what my client's going to be most interested in. So we'll do that. These are all modifiable. So if I want to change this up, if my client's really interested in, does it have a garage in it? I can change that. Just do a quick yes, refresh it. It's gonna put in whatever I want to have in here, which is fantastic. If I want to add tour notes, I can tell them park on 2nd floor, reserved spots for lease tours, or whatever you need to tell them. That's going to pop in there so they know. And then one of the more interesting things I think is, especially if you have a group that has 4, 5, 6 decision makers, they're all able to come in and click what they like on these ratings that you can change. So parking's a 5, common area lobby, well, it's a 3, safety security is a 4. And once you do that, it's going to start scoring this out so that you get an average score. This is my score, but it'll aggregate the group score so that you get over the entire survey or tour in this case, you're going to see exactly what everybody thought about the space. And at that point, you can really start seeing some buildings coming out. If you've got 2 5s and 3s, the 4 7s and the 5 stars start to look really interesting. Another thing that's pretty cool about this setup is you can come down here to these proposals, and if you have 2 or 3 spaces that you're valuing or looking at in a building, instead of just having this general deal, you can dive in a little bit closer and take a look at this proposal, drop in some basic information as tenant, triple net rate, square footage, free rent, that type of thing. You're going to save your proposal. It'll give you all that information. And once you have a couple of buildings, you can come over here and compare your deals. So while we're on tour, I want to do a quick comparison of what these spaces are going to look like, or even within a building. I'm going to look at a handful of spaces and see that I've got a deal that starts on X date. It's for Y months. Here are my terms. I do a year by year rent breakout. And then I've got my total rent, average monthly, effectively all the numbers that a client's going to want to look at to evaluate these deals. So they've got a very solid understanding of what the financial cost of this building are going to look like as they're touring, which, if y'all been on tours, is super helpful. You're also, here's where you're able to generate a tour book. You're able to generate a report and send it to folks if you want to. Really cool function here if you're surveying the market. So I've got 20, 30 buildings in here. Since the market's so weak, you can fill out your subject, do your body. If you don't have the landlord address, just click here to add it. If you do have it, send email to landlords. They all get their request for the floor plans and all that information. They send it back to you and drop it right in and you go. Super easy setup. And an easy way to get everybody on the same page as you're on these tours or surveys. So once we've gone through our tours, we've found a couple of options that we want. You know, it's interesting for smaller groups. This is basically all you need. If you've got a group that's a relatively small group or a one-off deal, they're only looking at 1 or 2 spaces. For the most part, they're able to make their decision on these financials down here, because it's just not going to vary that much, especially if you're doing a turnkey project or something along those lines. If you have something that's a little more complicated, I like to use this lease comparison and analysis section. I've built out one for this RealNex deal that we're doing here. And this is super helpful for clients that are larger. I've had some foreign owned entities that I've represented that love it because it drops in the accounting standards that they're going to use. And it also allows the person that you point in whatever city you're dealing with to be able to send a high quality presentation up to their bosses and get an understanding as to what they want to do. A couple of different ways to do this. General settings are super easy. You name it what you want to name it. You're active on your status, give it a discount rate, discounted cash flow. When do you want that to happen? You save it and you start rolling into your lease analysis. You drag and drop your picture if you don't have it. Add your address over here. It's going to do its geolocation deal automatically. And then you start dropping in your numbers. This one, we're going to call it an 8,000 square foot deal. Here's my suite. We're doing a triple net deal. I've got 2 renewal options. My building square footage, stories, sprinkler, all that stuff, all the stuff that you're going to want to see. And then I wanted to add some notes just to give these guys an understanding as to what they're building, what's special about the building as well. Get my term, get my end date. And then the really cool part about this is you're able to build out pretty much any deal structure that you can think of or that you can run across. I have yet to run across a deal that I haven't been able to build out in this. And we start with our base rent. So our base rent, we're going to call it $43 here. That's going to be a triple net per square foot per year basis. I'm going to do 4 months of free rent. And over here, I've added 50-cent increases per square foot that show up here. Now, if I want to change these individually, if something's different in one of the years over another, I can do that just by jumping into the line and hard keying it. If I want to do a 3% increase per annum, I'm going to do that instead. So now I've got an escalation factor of 3%. It drops down here and it shows me exactly what that's going to look like. I continue building out my financial run with the operating expenses. We see they're $18.61 here on a per square foot basis. I didn't get any free rent on my OPEX, so I have to pay OPEX immediately. That's a triple net deal as well. Here I'm showing an escalation of 3% on my OPEX, and that builds in down on line 2. Now this one, my client wanted to really know what their total all-in cost was going to look like. And so I added in the improvements here. It's going to cost them $130 to build out their space, and they're only getting $112 allowance. So that means they're going to come out of pocket $144,000. Now, maybe we go back and we do a revision and it's going to be $150. They wanted some nicer marble, so we do that. It's going to bring it down, and now they're coming out of pocket $304,000. You can do that for effectively anything you want. We have other operating expenses if something pops up that's unusual. Here I've added furniture, where they're going to do furniture at $45 a foot. It's showing their out of pocket's going to be $360. We've added a security deposit at $47.3 and moving expenses at $39. Now the moving expenses, we got a $5 estimate on what it's going to cost to move, but we got a $3 allowance. And so it's going to give me that delta, the product of that, instead of just one of the two numbers. Builds it out. Yeah, you can see exactly what your numbers are going to look like on a bottom line basis. Get a quick summary snapshot over here so that you as the broker get an understanding as to what this is going to look like. Nice little graphs, all that stuff. 2925 Richmond, this is going to be a little different deal. On this one, our base rent was $47. We got 6 months free rent. We're doing 2.5% annual increases. What I did here, because every once in a while you'll see where they break out electric, my operating expenses, but on top of that, we have to add our electric, and we're going to add our electric in at $2.10 per year. It's going to give us that line item down here, just to give you an idea as to how flexible you can be with what you want. And here, when we talked about all the other expenses you have, well, this group, they love having their dogs come into the office. Landlord said, that's okay, but we're going to charge you $1,000 per annum. Or we can do it per month if we wanted to, which seems more reasonable. No, it doesn't. Because that would be $1,000 per square foot per month. So what we have is a pet access fee that we called it with that landlord, which shows $1,000 per month. We've got improvements, and lucky for them, they only had to spend $45 to build up the space. They've got an allowance of $65. We're going to assume we're fantastic brokers and they can do a dollar for dollar back on the deal for that. So we've got $170,000 credit down here. Security deposit, furniture, all the same thing. And so we built this deal out, and you can do it up to, I think it's 5 now that you can use here. So you can do that across the board. The interesting part is where you start going in and you start looking at your analysis. You can see Buffalo Speedway, sort of the breakouts. You can see Richmond, the breakouts. You can see your summary. This one is particularly interesting as well, because maybe you've identified one building that you like and you're not so interested in comparing the buildings. You're interested in seeing how your deals changed over time. In that case, you would do a variance and you would end up having 2, 3, 4 of these deals side by side. You'd be able to show your client, we started at X, second deal was X minus 2%, third deal was X minus 6%. And you can start to see how you've effectively helped them reduce whatever metric they want to reduce to make that work for them. Now, once you've got this all set up, I like to come in and do a presentation. They've got this set up so that you can come in and change any of these fields, drop in the tenant logo, the company logo, whatever you're going to do for that. And then over on the side, you're going to get the option to pick all of these various add-ons, the reports that you're going to tack into this. And that will let you send this up to a client so that they can review it. Chins up your presentation, reasonably slick presentation. Gives you just kind of an overlay. Here's where it gets more interesting. So we've got our 3737 breakout, and we're going to see basically any type of number that a client could want is going to be in here somewhere. We've got all of our key stuff. We've got our cash flow analysis, so showing base rent recoveries improvement. It's just lining out all of those little details that we added into this deal so that they understand exactly what they're paying. Then we're looking at our lease schedule over here, and then an annual accounting breakdown. lot of groups are perfectly fine, understanding what their annual cost looks like with base rent, do a straight line, occupancy expense. I think something of large import is this right to use asset and the lease liability. So under the new financial regulations, especially if you're a larger company, you're going to want to know what do we need to put on our balance sheet that's going to give us a right of use asset, and then how do we credit that on a lease liability, or I guess vice versa, so that you can now account for these leases in the correct way. This was not something that we were easily able to do. It's pretty complicated on the back end to get this right. These guys have gotten this one right. You'll notice these are not exactly the same numbers. They shouldn't be. And so that's super useful. Like I said, I have a couple of clients that are based overseas. They love that, absolutely love that, because they've been using that accounting standard for a long time already. I did have an attorney who insisted on monthly breakouts every time, or on his lease analysis, and you can do that here as well. Get a breakdown of your base rent, straight line, expense, right, and lease liability. So if they want a monthly, it's going to be there. And you can pick and choose. You don't have to put all of these in every presentation that you're doing. You pick what your client wants and what's going to be most valuable to them. Same thing for 2925. And once we get past that, we get our comparisons, where we're able to take a side-by-side view where we see our overview. It's a breakdown of all our lease points that we have. Gives you your sort of top line numbers that your client's going to want to take a look at as they evaluate the deal. Get a comparison of totals, which is a little bit different, but it's going to be similar in that regard. Comparisons, variance reports. This variance report is super handy when you're comparing the same deal across multiples of negotiation iterations. That way they can see I started at, $50 a foot, now we're down to 40. And then it rolls into all the graphs. You got a handful of those, and it looks fantastic. So that's generally a short 32-minute summary of how we're doing this. It's going and getting your data, making sure you have high quality, accurate data inside these buildings, finding the people, prospecting on whomever you need to prospect on via email, SMS, calls. And then once you've generated a deal, being able to perform on that deal at a high level. Some other stuff I didn't show you, like deal rooms and all of that, that I don't use as much, but can be super handy for some of these other uses. So that's how we're using it. It's been very effective. And I guess at this point, open it up for questions or comments, whatever you guys have.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh. That was fantastic. I really appreciate your opening up your playbook and how you take advantage of these tools and serve your clients so well. One of the questions was fundamentally when you were going through your dialer and hitting those numbers. And I also noticed on your system, and not everyone would have this because of the dialer that you're using. So if you're using the integrated dialer, you would get the SMS feature as well. So could you talk about that, getting the your setup configuration there?
Yeah, so I have an integrated dialer that we use. Let's see, let me roll over to, just use the same one. So I don't have it pulled up right now. Well, we'll just do it. So whenever I'm making a lot of calls, I can come over here. I can either click to dial, click to text, use Ring Central. If I do that, this thing will slow to crawl since I'm on Wi-Fi. But yeah, so whenever you're doing that, what you can do, click to dial, you do a quick call, you can do a voicemail drop if you have that ability, so you're not having to repeat the same voicemail over and over and over. But you can also hit them a couple of different ways. So if I'm calling, I don't get an answer, I'll leave them voicemail. In the integrated dialer, I can type up a quick text message to them, send it. It's funny how many times if I'm doing a big list of calls, I'll start calling and then I'll get a text back, who is this? On my office phone, that goes nowhere. They just get a response that says this this phone doesn't accept text messages. Here, I'm making a call. I see that pop up, and a quick pre-done email back. It's, hi, this is Josh Marcell, Cressa, blah, 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 whatever I'm going to say. And so you can have quick response times to people that are by definition difficult to get on the phone. And if you have the chance, do it. If you have an integrated dialer, whether it be that RingCentral or some other one, you can also do things like call recording, so you can go back and evaluate how you're doing on stuff. You can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of metrics out there that you can start looking at once you do that. But it is super handy.
But just to be clear, RealNex has built all the integrations with RingCentral to give some additional
Correct.
value,
Yeah.
and that is the preferred integration at this point in time. You can use other dialers, but you may not get all of the other capabilities natively in that.
Yeah, and I can use, click mobile, click work. If I click here, it's going to pop up an email to send an email right away. Even with RingCentral, you do video calls. You immediately drop into a video call if someone's texting you, hey, what do you want? I want this. Oh, well, let me, call me at whatever time. How about now? Let's do a video call. And so you can do that as well. It's a really cool system.
Next question was on cost, so I'll take that. If you just have the CRM, and you are a CRM or a singular module subscriber to RealNex, on an annual subscription, the subscription's $129 per user per month based on the annual pricing. And if you upgrade to Navigator, it's $199. So the difference from $129 to $199, you get CRM, the transaction manager tour book, the market edge for the analysis, whether it's investment underwriting, comparative lease analysis, and the Marketplace Pro for listing management, listing campaigns, and marketing out to the RealNex community. So the full RealNex Navigator is the best value proposition. If you don't already have that, you would get the tour book piece with it, or you can get it as a standalone. But typically, it works beautifully as part of the overall package. Let's see, if there are any other questions, please come in with them. Josh, I think you covered the ground so well. You may not have left much room for question, which is great. But if there are any, we'll certainly take them. As a reminder, we will have this recording out to everyone in the next day or two, either tomorrow or Monday, and it will be posted on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. We have a whole host of past masterminds and use case webinars that we've had over the years. So whatever you're looking for, you should be able to find it there. And let's see, Josh, I don't know if you do anything with profiling your tenants. You went right into the stacking plan on the building. How else are you prospecting? Where else are you doing solicitations? Is it all from the stacking plan, or do you do any profile of known tenants in the market, tracking activity and that type of thing? Or
yeah, so I do that. I also use Zoom Info for a lot of information. But if you look at groups, I've got me and the guy that I work with on this, we've got a Canvas deal. So if we're not able to figure out what's going on with this group, we've got a Canvas where we'll go walk in to these companies. I've got legal prospects that I'm specifically marketing legal oriented marketing campaigns to, as well as medical. I've got my client base in here so that number one, my clients are taken out of the general marketing campaigns, because I don't want to send my clients the stuff that I'm sending everybody else. I do want to segment my clients into a space where I can send them beginning of the year notices that, hey, your OPEX reconciliation is popping up. Send it to me. If you have any questions, happy to review it. One of my clients this year sent that out to them. They had an issue. We got them fixed up on that one, which makes them super happy. Literally a month later, had a referral from that client. So it's handy to kind of maintain that setup in there as well. And so, yeah, we'll do that quite a bit, where we're segmenting these groups into different spots so that we're able to go out and target people a little more efficiently than just using a general stack and market segment. So yeah, super easy to do silos if that's how you're approaching it, as opposed to just geographically based.
Excellent. Next question was about the tour book. Just how did you get started in the tour book? And it's really simple. So you just want to just get back to the beginning, just come over to the menu, pick the tour book and show.
Yep. Create tenant deal. Name it. This guy's did that. RealNex survey. It could be a couple the same thing. Let's see, and they're literally, I think you guys have literally every building in the nation loaded up in this thing. It's randomly 8557. Sure, we're gonna go look at something in Oklahoma City. Now, I'm not gonna have pictures and all these obviously on this, but you at least have the base for pretty much any building that you're ever gonna want in this thing.
So it's a starting point, and that's a great point, Josh, that you bring up, that you may want to augment that building profile. So if you're coming in, you see a property in there and it doesn't have a picture or the details of it, you can come into the building table at the top and add the content that you need to build out the tour.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So tour members are just whoever you're going to have on your tour. There we go. That's
and if either the property didn't exist or you want to add to it, you can do that. So just remember that this is not just your listings. If this is anything in the market, you can.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and as a tenant rep, I never have, I mean, I'll have subleases and I may have a building for sale here and there, but as a tenant rep, I almost never have buildings that are my buildings. And so I'm relying on all this stuff out there. I even use this color picker here, Colorzilla, if you hadn't used it. Makes it super easy to pick a color, copy to clipboard. I just come down here and drop in whatever the color of my clients, or whatever their colors are, save it, and you're done. That creates that initial deal. I've got these two, let's see, I've got this one here, so I'm going to roll into the setup. I've got my buildings. It's like I said before, it's a fairly simple add files and photos. Let's see. Sure, this stuff is still there from my temp. You can drag and drop, whatever you want to do. So I've got my building photo in there. I can add floor plans, same thing. I can drag and drop if I want, or just click on my floor plans. They're in there. And once again, if it's something that we'll call this one 9,000 square feet, our price is, let's call it $547 a foot because it's a really nice building we're purchasing. Oh, oops, call it $3 million. And then you change around whatever you need. This building was built in 1967, you know, whatever. And it always disappears. You refresh it, it pops back up. But the idea is that it's a little work the first time you do it, because you're going to have the picture and, you know, you'll modify floor plans and stuff like that as you go. But once it's in there, and you just keep on, especially if you're a tenant rep. I tour the same buildings over and over through my career. So it's super handy to have this here. Like I said, if you're doing investment sales or anything along those lines, it's easy to drop in the files and photos. It's not too burdensome up front. And then you're able to run all this stuff, new proposal, pop it in, drop in your information, save it, and you're done. Well, we'll just show here. This is going to be a tenant. We'll do a triple net deal. $34, 9,000 square feet, 72-month term. We're going to do an escalation of 50 cents per year. Escalation will start in, month 13. That'll be after the first year. And we get 2 months of free rent because it's a strong market. Free rent start month is 100% TI. We're not going to worry about. Sure. Save your proposal, and you've got your proposal set down here. It's ready to do a comparison once you go back to your main page and set your 3 that you want to compare. Map's not usually going to be that wide, but I mean, as we noted, the geolocation is really strong on this deal. So as soon as you drop an address in, it's going to tell you exactly where it is, and it's generally going to map it on whatever page you're looking at as well. So super easy.
Excellent. Final question before we wrap up. I appreciate everyone hanging in. Question on AI. Are there any particular tools that you're using or things you're thinking about from an AI perspective that would benefit the audience?
Oh, man. I mean, that's
research we've done and looking to implement next year. But if you have anything, I'd love to.
Yeah, I know you guys have been talking about that and how you're going to integrate it. I think that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, I use ChatGPT pretty regularly to help build emails that I don't want to build. I also use it if I'm doing kind of crazy stuff in Excel that I haven't done before. If I'm modeling out a project, so I'm advising on a sort of a complicated build for a building, have used that when I don't know exactly how to do something on an Excel sheet. You have to know enough about the subject, I've found, to know when it's right and when it's wrong and how to implement it. But ChatGPT for me has been fantastic. I know there's Claude and there's Metasdeal and all that stuff. So there's a million out there. But yeah, I think that's going to be the really interesting thing over the next year or two, is figuring out who the winners are in the AI run and figuring out exactly how we integrate them into this business. But it will happen. It's coming.
It'll happen, but it's how do you use it? So they still clients need an advisor, someone to use the tools, know how to use those tools, but know how to advise and continue to give them the information they need, how they need it, and it just going to get more and better information, more and better analytics, and help target, refine, and implement the decisions.
Well, the beautiful thing about real estate is your counterparty is also a person. So
yeah, exactly. You just have chatbots yelling.
We're never going away.
Any final comments, Josh? Otherwise, we will wrap it up. And thank you for sharing. We really appreciate it.
That's it. If anything pops up, if anybody has a question, feel free to give them my contact info. Happy to answer anything.
Outstanding. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, and wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving coming up, and look forward to seeing you not next week, but the week after. We'll kick off December with another in our RealNex webinar series. So wish you well. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Josh, for all the great perspective that you've been able to share today. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.